Talia Hawthorne presents Before the Lake. If you like the story, follow me for the latest updates and comment what you think happened to Declan. Season 1, Episode 5, Torque. Chapter 1, Antiseptic and Static. Hospitals are designed to imitate a sense of perfect order, yet real order never smells like floor stripper and the specific kind of panic that gets trapped under flickering fluorescent lights. I have spent years observing how institutions prefer the comfort of a neat report over the jagged reality of a physical event, because gravity is a much easier variable to manage than human intention. Inside the ICU waiting room, Ethan Caldwell remained hunched over his laptop as if the machine owed him a single honest answer before the sun came up. Marcus Alvarez stood by the window, watching the rhythmic pulse of ambulance lights while his mind replayed the corrupted audio fragment Declan's system tried to send. The police keep circling the same goddamn explanation because loss of footing sounds better for the university's insurance, Ethan muttered, slamming the laptop halfway shut out of sheer frustration. Marcus didn't turn away from the rain, his voice dropping into that low register he used when the physics of a situation refused to add up. Wood does not splinter sideways just because somebody lost their balance, Ethan. Wood reacts to force, and that board reacted like someone pushed torque through the wrong angle on purpose, Marcus explained. They both knew that if Declan woke up and started naming names, the numbers translating his life into data would suddenly become the least of the house's problems. Real order is never as stable as it looks. It is simply a structure waiting for the right amount of pressure to reveal its flaws. Chapter 2, The Other House. Rivalries rarely begin with a clear set of evidence. Instead, they grow from the fertile ground of resentment, power, and the sudden appearance of an opportunity to strike. The air in the campus bar was thick with the scent of spilled beer and the kind of social warfare that Elise Davenport has spent 3 years perfecting. She didn't need to shout to be heard. She simply leaned into a circle of fraternity donors and whispered doubts about the tragic accident at the Theta Amara gala. It is just fascinating how a brand new doc suddenly fails the moment a journalist starts asking questions about house finances, Elise remarked, her voice dripping with a playful, strategic cruelty. Sloane Mercer arrived with Ryder Bennett, her expression tightening the moment she saw Elise controlling the room's narrative. This was not a confrontation of raised voices, but a match of social chess where every look carried a hidden cost. Elise caught Sloane's eye and smiled, an expression that suggested she held a hand of cards the house wasn't ready to see played. Relax, Sloane. I was just telling everyone that if the investigation continues, some very embarrassing details might finally surface for certain donor families, Elise added, her eyes flicking toward Ryder. I have watched these dynamics play out for decades. In this world, reputation is the only currency that matters, and Elise Davenport knows exactly how to devalue it. Chapter 3, Pressure Points. The university gym late at night is a specific kind of haunting, a place where the mirrors show you exactly what you are trying to outrun. Blair Smith moved through a cable row set with a clinical, aggressive discipline that suggested she was trying to sweat out the rising pressure of the investigation. Lyra Ashmore leaned against a mirrored pillar, watching the routine with a small, predatory smile that carried equal parts curiosity and genuine trouble. "You are pulling that weight like it personally insulted you. Or maybe you are just trying to maintain control of a house that is currently on fire," Lyra said softly, her voice carrying a casual, intimate vulgarity. She stepped closer, invading Blair's personal space until their reflections blurred together in the harsh overhead light. Lyra reached out and brushed the inside of Blair's wrist, her fingers lingering on the skin with a deliberate slowness that made Blair's rhythm falter for a single second. "Declan called me before he fell, Blair, because he believed someone inside Theta Amara was hiding something far uglier than a simple scandal," Lyra murmured, her eyes searching Blair's face for a fracture in the armor. Blair's breathing missed a beat, a tiny fracture in her composure that Lyra caught and savored instantly. Attraction becomes a lethal liability when it intersects with secrets that people are willing to protect at any cost. And Blair is beginning to realize that Lyra knows exactly where the cracks are hidden. Chapter 4: Internal Pressure. Institutions rarely collapse from a single external event. They fracture internally long before the public ever notices the first sign of structural decay. The chapter meeting inside Theta Amara was thick with the sound of members arguing over the rumors Elise Davenport was currently weaponizing across campus. Kinsley Harper stood at the front, her posture aggressive and her language blunt, as she attempted to force the room back into a state of terrified order. "I do not give a damn about your social media anxiety, but I do care about the fact that Elise is currently fucking our reputation in the town square," Kinsley snapped, her loyalty to the house manifesting as a sharp, crude defense of her sisters. While some members panicked about the investigation, Kinsley remained focused on the immediate threat to their collective status. The arguments about house politics and donor relationships continued until Harlow Van Camp stood up, her voice quiet but devastating enough to cut through the noise. "Does anyone in this room actually know what happened on that dock? Or are we all just practicing the same script until we stop feeling guilty?" Harlow asked, her hands trembling. A heavy silence settled over the room as nobody dared to answer her, revealing that the narrative holding them together was already starting to dissolve. Chapter 5: Sentimental Evidence. Small, sentimental objects often act as the most dangerous evidence later in an investigation, because people rarely expect their tokens of unity to be used as tools of exposure. Later that evening, the members gathered in a quieter attempt to restore a sense of normalcy to a house that was clearly under siege. Blair set a cloth bag on the table, her movements deliberate as she distributed the thin silk friendship bracelets for the upcoming philanthropy event. "I expect every single one of you to wear these until the investigation is officially closed. We are going to look like a united front even if we are not," Blair instructed, her tone sharp and calculated. Kinsley grabbed a bracelet and snapped it onto her wrist with a mocking laugh, calling the objects ironic symbols of sisterhood while the police were still circling the lake. In a moment of quiet, Lyra handed a specific bracelet back to Blair, one she had altered with a tiny surgical engraving of her own name inside the clasp. Blair stared at it for a second too long, her composure faltering as she realized the intimate weight of the gift. "That is completely unnecessary, Lyra," she said, though she fastened it onto her wrist anyway. These bracelets were meant to be a performance of unity, but they are quickly becoming a record of the very tensions they were designed to hide. Chapter 6. Torque. Physical structures remember the application of pressure long after the people responsible for it have pretended to forget the events of the night. Nova Sinclair and Marcus Alvarez returned to the east side of the lakeside dock, the warped board sitting exactly where memory and trauma had left it. Marcus stepped onto the bracket, explaining that while a vertical load creates a stable force, the damage on this board required a different mechanical approach. "Nothing happens when you play by the rules of gravity, Nova, but the moment force hits the bracket from the side, the whole board stops behaving like a platform and starts behaving like a lever," Marcus said, his voice dropping as he physically demonstrated the torque principle. Marcus shifted his weight sideways. Wood shrieked in protest before giving way entirely, sending him crashing into the dark water of the lake. Once Nova hauled him back onto the safety of the ladder, Marcus crouched beside the bracket and pulled a fresh, jagged splinter free from the underside of the grain. After Marcus pulls the splinter from the dock and proves the torque damage was deliberate, Nova turns the wood fragment carefully under the moonlight. Something unexpected catches the pale light reflecting off the water, proving it is not lake algae or natural wood grain. A thin streak of deep emerald green paint runs vividly along the splintered edge. Marcus immediately recognizes the substance as industrial lubricant mixed with enamel paint, noting it is an expensive custom blend rather than standard campus issue. Juan Marquez steps out from the shadows of the trees, looking down at the splinter with a heavy, recognizing expression. "That specific color is not something you find at a hardware store, and I have definitely seen it before," Juan says quietly, turning his gaze toward Nova. He explains that this exact emerald green paint is a custom color used exclusively on the private maintenance equipment at the Sinclair family estate. Nova stares at the splinter in horror as she realizes the physical evidence doesn't point to a rival sorority, but directly to her own mother. Every version of this story is true. Some of them are just more dangerous than others. Stay close.